Good evening, Norfolk! Well, that's off to a good start. On May the 7th, all of you in this county, and indeed some inside of Norwich itself, will have the opportunity to go to the ballot box, as you should, as council taxpayers who've seen your council taxes rise by the maximum year on year on year. You deserve the opportunity, do you not, to vote for who's in charge. No taxation without representation. And yet, last year, after the Conservatives had served their 4-year term, your elections were cancelled. Cancelled under the guise of local government reorganisation. The Labour government and the Conservative Party working in concert to deny you your right to vote. And I thought that was absolutely monstrous. But we were assured in the House of Commons by none other than Angela Rayner, stop it. We were assured by Angela Rayner, don't worry, it's only a 1-year delay. And what happened this year? This year the Labour government said to local councils, if you want to delay the elections, you can. And for the 2nd year in a row, the Conservative leadership of Norfolk County Council opted to deny you the vote again. The weasels. And I thought, this isn't good enough. This just isn't good enough. We're not going to have this. The right to vote, the right to choose, the right to hire and fire those that govern you, that spend your taxes and that make decisions on your behalf. Our right to make those decisions is something, frankly, we fought 2 world wars for, and I'll be damned if I am not going to fight. And so we took our case for judicial review and we won our case to go to the High Court to take on the political establishment. Now, I've got to tell you, I was quite looking forward to a day in the High Court. I quite fancied my chances, really. But they collapsed within 48 hours. They said all the elections will go ahead. The only reason you in Norfolk have the vote on May the 7th is because we in Reform UK stood up and fought for your rights. And just have a look at our current political leadership. Have a look at our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. Already the most unpopular Prime Minister in living memory. A man who clearly believes in absolutely nothing other than what is on the piece of paper that he's given. And I couldn't believe it. On July the 5th, 2024, he'd known for a year he was going to win the general election. And he went out into Downing Street at 11 o'clock in the morning to give his victory speech, which lasted for 9 minutes. And he walked out with a sheet of paper, puts it there, you see, and says, we've won a great victory. We've beaten the Conservatives. And on he goes. Like a pigeon in Trafalgar Square. The man in 9 minutes, he looked at his notes 158 times. That tells you all about him. I may not be perfect, but I'll speak to you tonight for 30 minutes without looking at a single note, because I know what I believe in, and I've had enough of this country going down the drain. And he has proved to be the most unpatriotic Prime Minister in the history of our nation, prepared to sell out to the European Union, to sell out to anything the UN want us to do, not only to give away the Chagos Islands, but to pay for the privilege of doing it. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up, could you? He is a complete disaster. And if there is one big incentive on May the 7th to vote for us, given that we are the only party now that is credible to beat them at the next general election, vote reform on May the 7th to get rid of Starmer. Not that the Conservatives in office were any better. Now look, the Americans and the Israelis decided they would go into a big attack on Iran. Whether that was the wise thing to do or not, time will tell. My own view is that if it stops the Iranians getting a nuclear weapon, it will have been worth it. But our relationship with America is vital. Without America, we are utterly defenseless in every single way. And the decision to deny them the use of Diego Garcia and RAF Fairford, and then, despite the fact we denied them, the Iranians still fired missiles at an RAF base in Cyprus, and then we change our minds and say, yes, you can use our bases. We've damaged our relationship with America, whether we agree with their actions or not. And that is dangerous, because when I say we are defenseless, and whoever would have thought anybody would have stood up in the county that produced Horatio Nelson and say that it took us 3 weeks and 1 day to send a single Royal Naval vessel to Cyprus to defend British sovereign territory. Our armed forces hollowed out by 14 years of Conservative government, and our armed forces showing no prospect under this Prime Minister of getting any more support. In fact, there are currently 242 former soldiers who've served in our special forces who are facing prosecution for what they did, acting under orders in the name of the Queen. And this Prime Minister has aided and assisted those barristers who wish to bring down the reputation of Britain's armed forces. And I say, not only must we rearm, not only must we do our bit to be respected and perhaps slightly feared on the world stage, but we must stand up and support military veterans who've done what they've done for our country. But the collective stupidity of Westminster never fails to amaze me. Net zero. Oh yes, no. These wind turbines are going to save the world. You're going to have the extraordinary situation where now we're contemplating whether there could be energy shortages in our country. The Conservatives put a 75% super tax on profits in the North Sea on oil and gas. That has killed tens of billions of pounds worth of investment in the North Sea. The Conservatives banned the production of onshore gas in our country. The Conservatives wrote net zero into law without even a proper debate in Parliament on the subject, because everyone agrees, don't they? Everyone agrees that if we decide to commit economic harry-carry, that somehow everybody else will follow us. Well, you know something? On the other side of the North Sea, Norway are rather more grown up than the rest of us. And even if there are new technologies that can produce power, we're going to be using oil and gas for the next 30 years at least. Last year, the Norwegians started 49 new drill sites in the North Sea in exactly the same fields that extend into our territorial waters. Have a guess how many drill sites we launched last year? None. A big round none. And our message, given that there are now 10 billion barrels, think about that, 10 billion barrels of untapped oil and gas in the North Sea and onshore, we should not be reliant on energy coming into Britain from all over the world. We should be self-sufficient, we should be an energy exporter, and we will, in Reform UK, start to produce our own oil and gas in Britain as a beginning to lower prices for everybody. We've deindustrialized Britain. We have the highest energy prices in the world, 4 times greater than America, 8 times greater than China, and double the price of France. We've lost refining, we've lost steel, we've lost chemicals, we've lost cement making, we've lost brick making. Industry after industry has closed down in Britain, moved off to India or elsewhere, and guess what we do? We import the goods back into Britain. We will pursue a policy of re-industrializing our country, producing what we need here. We must have energy security, but also, folks, we must have more food security than we currently have. And the attack, the assault on rural Britain and our farming community has now reached a level that frankly is depressing and upsetting. One of the reasons that people love our countryside all over the world is because of the families, both large and small, who've shepherded and husbanded these landscapes for centuries. The Labour Party's vicious attack on the family farming community with the farms tax is something we will reverse in its entirety. They even want to ban trail hunting. You might as well make horse riding illegal, dog walking illegal. These are attacks on traditional parts of our country, and I'm a country boy at heart, and I promise you, I will stand up for those communities because it is very, very deep within me. Very deep within me. But the biggest and most fundamental mistake that has been made in our country is the attempt to close down any debate about immigration and culture. And just think about this. By the way, I know this because I've been abused for 25 years for daring to even raise the subject. But think about this. From Windrush in the late 40s, through the 50s, through the 60s, through the 70s, through the 80s, through the 90s, until Blair came to power, net migration into Britain averaged 30,000 people a year. All right? Think about that. 30,000 people a year, net migration for over half a century. And what happened? Tony Blair opened the doors to uncontrolled numbers of people. And suddenly net migration was 250,000 a year, 1/3 a year. And what we began to see were parts of our cities effectively becoming ghettoized and unrecognizable as being British in any single way. But if that wasn't bad enough, then the Conservatives took power. And Boris Johnson, on the back of a Brexit vote and a country that had left the European Union, opened the doors to a further 3.8 million people, of whom only 20% had work permits. Most of the rest are going to cost us untold tens of billions in years to come. But the money isn't the worst of it. The worst of it is we now have communities in which religious extremism is allowed to flourish, and yet anyone that dares speak against it fears a knock at the door from the local police force. We're living in two-tier Britain, with two-tier policing and two-tier justice, and a government now that will bend to the extremist will of an Islamist community who are determined not to adapt as visitors to our way of life, but for us to adapt and change to their way of life. And if the Labour Party want to go down that route, and if the Conservative Party have not had the courage in government to do anything about it, other than add to it with countless millions, let me tell you, we will stand up for the Judeo-Christian culture that has made this country what it is. I came back into politics 20 months ago. I spent a quarter of a century fighting to get us out of the European Union, to be free to make our own decisions. And how interesting what Robert Jenrick has said today about air taxes, of course, was something we couldn't change as members of that union. And I thought my work was done. 31st of January 2020, Parliament Square, 100,000 people, big party afterwards. Might have had a couple of drinks that evening, I can't quite remember. And my work was done. And I was off doing other things, in particular working hard for GB News, a job that I loved, absolutely loved. But I've come back into politics because I fear that we are not many years away from our collapse in society, from being so great that frankly it will become irrecoverable. And yet I know that out there is still a solid, silent majority that wants to stand up for the values of this party, of family, community and country. And what we have to do is to mobilize and unite that silent majority behind us. May the 7th is the biggest single electoral test that we'll face between now and the next general election. If we win here in Norfolk and elsewhere on May the 7th, we'll be on our way to winning the next general election, and I know it won't be easy. The challenges that we face are so many and so varied, and in some cases so entrenched. But what we offer people is one 4-letter word. Not that one. Anyone guess what that word is? Hope, hope, hope that we can stand up for the right fundamental values and turn Britain around. And so back out of retirement, I am striving every sinew. I'm visiting the country week after week, day after day, speaking to crowds like you, of ordinary folk that have given up your evening to come and hear what we have to say. Now in Norfolk, and indeed in Suffolk last week, I seem to be quite a boon for the local media. I think I'll help sales of the Eastern Daily Press somehow. I think regional news might get a few more viewers than normal. And look, I can't promise you that if we win Norfolk County Council, that we can somehow wave a magic wand and make the debt and the problems all go away. But what I can tell you is that when one party has been in power for too long, it leads to complacency and it leads to bad decisions. And frankly, I do think in Norfolk there has been maladministration. They don't want to hear it, but we'll stand on our record of the 10 English county councils that we won last year with overall outright majorities, where we've managed already to cut £300 million of excessive expenditure. And by the way, if you're in Norwich working for the county council and you're in the DEI department, you better start looking for a job. But what I can proudly say is that our council tax rises in our 10 councils are lower than the counties run by the other party. What I can promise you in Norfolk, if we win, we will keep your council tax as low as we possibly can as council taxpayers. Tonight at midnight, I'll deal with the French to stop the boats expires. Now, Starmer is better at stopping boats than you think. He stopped me going to the Chagos Islands, and he stopped the Royal Navy getting to Cyprus for over 3 weeks. But when it comes to the Channel, we have given the French, over the last decade, £800 million to stop the boats. That money has been completely and utterly wasted, yet from midnight they want another £365 million. This Prime Minister was elected saying he would smash the gangs. No, Boris said stop the boats, Rishi said stop the boats, but no, I'm going to smash the gangs. He's so inspiring, isn't he? And under him, 70,000 people have come to the United Kingdom. Tomorrow's a flat, calm day. Tomorrow the number will go through 200,000 that have crossed in the last few years. I was out there in 2020, going out filming this, asking why mainstream media were not covering it, predicted there'd be an invasion because there might as well be a sign on the White Cliffs of Dover saying everyone welcome. And look at it. Hotels being filled all over the country at massive expense. Houses of multiple occupancy being dumped in streets. And so many of these young men who throw away their passports and their iPhones into the English Channel when they reach the 12-mile line, and I filmed it. So many of them come from cultures in which women are not even regarded as second-class citizens. Not a day goes by now where you don't read about some horrendous rape or sexual assault that has happened. And that is all the responsibility of Conservative and Labour governments who've made our streets less safe, who've added massively to our welfare bills, but I also believe that it's a threat to national security. People coming in from Afghanistan, from Iran and elsewhere. We're building up people that will pose a terrorist threat to us and this country in the years to come. Starmer will do nothing, and he has no plan. And I stood up at Prime Minister's questions last week and I said, given that Smash the Gangs is a failure, and knowing, of course, this deadline was approaching, I asked him what was his plan B. And true to form, he didn't even attempt to give an answer. He just read off a script about council taxes in Worcestershire. He ignored this issue that is so fundamental in terms of fairness, decency, security in our country, that I got up and I walked out in protest of the House of Commons. We will only deal with this question if we're prepared to stand up and accept that the order that was put in place nearly 80 years ago is now not fit for purpose. We will clear the barrier to detention and deportation, as the Australians did back in 2012. We'll stop the boats coming within weeks, and we'll do it by leaving the European Convention on Human Rights and getting back control of our borders. So I return to the question of the silent majority. And I suspect many of you in this room are part of that silent majority. You might have talked to your friends, to your family about how you feel. You may even have been too shy to do it for fear of people coming back and being unpleasant. But here in Norfolk, there are men and women that have decided they will stand up. They will be candidates for us in these elections. And before you vote for them, or before I ask you to vote for them, I want you to have a look at them. So please, candidates, come and join me on stage now. Now, as they make their way up onto the stage for our little finale, and you'd expect some pyrotechnics from us, wouldn't you? I mean, come on. But I want to say this to you in the audience. Most of these men and women have never stood for elected office before in their lives. Most of these men and women have previously never even been members of any political party. But they've reached this moment in their lives where they realize the desperate trouble that our country is in. Come on, chop, chop. They realize the desperate trouble our country is in. And they're prepared to stand up, to put their heads up over the parapet, to take whatever online abuse they're going to get on social media. And I'm not asking all of you in the audience to make that same level of sacrifice. But what I am asking you in the audience is to please think about what I've said tonight. Think about what everybody else has said to you this evening. And I bet many of you came along, file down. I bet many of you came along as what I would describe as reform curious. Would that be fair? You've come along, you're not quite sure whether this political movement, whether this political party is for you. But if you have become convinced that Britain is broken as we believe it is, if you have become convinced that this country needs change, and it needs radical change, and it needs it very, very quickly indeed, otherwise everything that those that built before us have defended and cherished will be ruined, if you've come to that conclusion, then I want to ask you whether you're prepared to do your bit. Are you as an audience prepared to do something to help us win these elections when it comes? Good. And you can do it. You can do it in so many ways. You can join our party. You can give us money. You can talk to your friends and family. You can join local branches. You can leaflet, you can canvass, but please, above all, wherever you go, whatever you do, spread this message that real radical political change is coming to our country. It's coming soon. It's not before time. Thank you for coming along this evening. You've been a great audience. Here's to May the 7th.